Hey there, welcome to Synth Seeker. My name is Luke. So, it's late at night, and I learned something new today. I know I'm apparently ignorant, but somewhere along the line in Ableton version 10 or 11, they added a CPU, relative CPU usage meter to the bottom of each track, these 6 little LED segments. You get it with turning on this little CPU key here. What these things are for is to tell you the relative CPU usage between the tracks. So if I start this up running, I've got 4 instances of contact instruments here with various like stacked reverbs to just sort of pretend that one's more CPU intensive than the other. And what happens is, of these 4 tracks that are running, this one has segments lit up. That means that this track chews up more CPU than these ones do. And if you go to this track and turn off its instrumentation and effects, it fades away as the CPU is no longer used. It's freed up, and now of the 3 remaining tracks in use, this one now has a segment lit, whereas these ones do not. This one does not, and this one's got one lit periodically, but it tends to fade out. So that would indicate that this uses more CPU than this track, and this track uses more CPU than this track, right? And that's useful to go, and when you're, working on your music and you're starting to get dropouts or you're having CPU, problems, you can just pull this up, find the hotspots amongst the tracks, and either, do something to deal with the CPU, move effects to ascend or freeze the track or use, more efficient tools, something like that. But it occurred to me that what I could do, because I had some time to kill tonight, was load up every plug-in instrument synthesizer I have. I'm not going to do drum machines or samplers, just synths. Load them all up, and then give them all the same task to do, and then rank them by relative CPU usage, right? It's not super scientific in that I'm trying to figure out exactly how efficient each one is, or exactly how much more, CPU this one uses than, plug-in A versus plug-in B. But what it will let me do with this thing is put them in a list in order of highest to lowest, so highest CPU usage to lowest, given a particular task. All right. So let me load up this set and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we are with this new set. Now, what's going on here is I've given all of these synths the same task. They're going to play a big fat chord and sustain it for 7 bars or so, and then stop, or 7 beats. Anyway, they're going to all play the same chord over and over and over again. There's going to be a little break where they loop, but basically I've already ranked them in order from highest CPU usage to lowest CPU usage. The thing is, it's sort of the asymptotic sort of curve, or what's happening is it's pretty clear at the high end who the bad is a relative term, who the high CPU usage plugins are. But then as they sort of all curve down and start getting more and more efficient, it gets harder to tell, and so you start getting groupings where these 3 are all relatively similar, and then these 5 are relatively similar, and then these 7 are relatively similar. Anyway, but we're still going to go. I've got them ranked as I interpret it, and you can look at the blinking lights and see if you agree with me or not. And basically, this is on an M1 Mac with 64 gigabytes of memory. It's an M1 Max. Max Mac. Oof, tongue twister. Anyway, so let's get these things rolling. We'll start up these clips. All right, so everything's playing here. So I've blocked these off. I'll just reveal them quickly as we go through. So as you can see, all of the CPU is, this first track 1 has 2 segments lit up. It's chewing up the most CPU relative to the remaining tracks. And if I go out, they're all basically blank. Okay, I'm not going to scroll out. But let's turn this off. What is it? This is the Arturia V Collection Synthy V synth. All right, that is definitely the highest CPU usage of all of the virtual instruments I have. Let's turn that off. We should see the next one or few light up. So as the Synthy V goes to sleep, what wakes up but the CS80V version 4. That's definitely, when it's sustaining this chord out, chewing up the most CPU usage. Now, if you watch, when this clip ends here and it loops, you'll see a bunch of flashes of other things happening. What that is variance in reverb tails, basically. So some of the virtual instruments have built-in delays and built-in reverbs. Every synth here is set up to just be a single oscillator, sawtooth wave if possible. There's a couple synths that actually can't do sawtooth waves. We'll talk about those at the end. But they're all basically single oscillator sawtooths with a quarter note delay and then a big hall reverb. All right, I'm not going to play it for you because it's just cacophony right now. But what happens is when it reaches the end of the loop and it stops playing, releases the note, the different reverb tails will cause, CPU to sparkle out as this one, slowly releases, and these other ones may become a higher CPU usage for a moment. But while it's sustaining, basically while these circles, clocks are still going around, you can see the highest CPU usage for sustained output of a synth, right? And in this case, number one was Synth V, number two is the CS80 V4. All right, and let's turn off the CS80 V4, and we'll see what's next. All right, next in line is the SQ80V. All right, I just got an ESQ1 and refurbished it a few months ago. Love it, absolutely love it. If you can get an SQ80 or an ESQ1, I highly recommend picking it up. But they don't have, the hardware doesn't have any effects. Or the SQ80 may, but the ESQ1 does not. Anyway, I'll just keep going. So that's the SQ80, is the third highest CPU usage relative to the other ones that I've got installed here. All right. When I turn that off, now we actually get two synths that are similar to each other. They're both a single segment lit when sustained. And it is the Juno 6V and the Jupiter 8V. All right, as the Juno 106, but the Juno 6 is what they're calling it. They're about equal as far as chewing up CPU on my system. All right, let's turn off the Juno 6. We'll turn off the Jupiter 8. Put those to sleep. And what's the next highest contender? Well, sustaining, we've got another almost tie. We've got a tie here between the Matrix 12V and the Korg MS-20. All right, and maybe a bit of the Prophet VS as well. These three are sort of clustered as far as sustaining, right? So let's turn off the Matrix 12. We'll turn off the Korg MS-20, and we'll turn off the Prophet VS. And as we continue to go down, the synths are getting more and more efficient CPU usage-wise for this particular task. Remember, this task is playing a single oscillator, sawtooth wave, sustaining it out, and then using a little delay and reverb on it, okay? So our next lowest CPU usage is the Arturia Mini V, right? V3, the Minimoog clone, right? And I actually have that set. That's a monophonic synth, but in the case of monophonic synths for these virtual instruments, I have set them to be polyphonic, and I'm playing them polyphonically. So if you're going to use it monophonically, it'll actually be even more CPU efficient. So let's shut this one down. Mini V is going to sleep. And next in line, as far as high CPU usage, we have another tie here between the Arturia DX7V and the OPXA. Both of those are lit up pretty well. All right, let's turn them off. And let's do next two would be, are we getting a tie here? Yeah, we've got another tie. It's the Emulator 2 from the V Collection, and our first non-Arturia synth. This is the Rhizomatic Plasmonic synth. This is the new flagship from Rhizomatic software, Rhizomonic software. It's the guy who wrote Absinthe, basically. It's his company, and this is his new synth. So let's turn off the Emulator 2. Goodbye, our Arturia synths, and hello, Rhizomatic. Let's turn you off. All right, and let's scroll down to the next batch here. All right, so we have a sort of three-way tie, looks like. Looks like we have three synths here while sustaining that are all chewing up the same amount of CPU. Again, when this clip closes off and it ends and all the reverb tails sort of kick in as the notes stop, we stop generating notes, you get this sort of Christmas tree sparkle of things across the other synths. Really what this means is that they're very, very close to each other. Whoops, there we go. Put that back. So what are we looking at? We're looking at pigments. All right, so there you tie between pigments and Vital and the CZ from the Arturia collection, right? I think that's the Casio CZ series synth, right? These are all about the same. So let's put pigments to sleep. We'll put Vital to sleep, right? And saying that pigments and Vital are the same might piss people off, but hey man, I subscribe to Vital too. I like pigments, I like Vital. Everybody chill. They, as far as the relative CPU usage is concerned from this experiment, they're about the same on my Mac in Ableton as far as chewing up CPU for this task. Now, as we build more complex patches and put more modulations in, those efficiencies are going to multiply and magnify. So it depends, right? But, you know, for basic usage, we're talking, you know, simple Berlin school tones, they're about the same. Let's keep going. All right, now that we've got the pigments and Vital and the CZ to sleep, we've got what looks like a bit of a tie here, and maybe a three-way. Definitely these two here. What are these? This is Massive X, believe it or not. Massive X, like a year ago, wouldn't run on my M1 synth, and even on my Intel Macs, on my M1 Mac, but on my Intel Macs it ran, but it was a huge CPU hog. So, you know, bravo to the Massive X team for optimizing the hell out of it. Now, again, if I load it up with a bunch of modulations, we'll see, you know, all bets are off. But for this, it's a relatively low CPU usage synth. Like, if you hadn't been using it because you were like, oh, it's a CPU hog, I might go back, update to the latest version, and look at it again and see what it's all about. All right. So we turn off Massive X, and what's next? It's Roland Xenology, right? There's our Roland sounds. I like the Roland Cloud. I really recommend it for people. Getting a Roland synth is good. Their hardware's fine. But I think the least expensive way to get your access to the massive Roland sound library is the cloud. It's $10 a month. You know, for the pro version, it's less than that. I think it's $3 or $4 a month for just the basic, you know, entry. And it's, you know, it's pretty efficient. So let's shut it off and see what lights up next. With Xenology going to sleep, looks like we've got, this ranking, I might have missed a little ranking here. It looks like the next one, and maybe not that one there, but the one next to it. Hey, I'll tell you what, let me move it around a little bit. There we go. Let's see what happens. There we go. Okay, for sustaining, yeah, this one's definitely more so than these two. So let's say that this is, what is this? This is the Arturia V Collection CMI-V. All right, CMI-V is next. We'll put that to sleep and see what happens. Okay, now we're starting to get into like splitting hairs between things. I'd say the next 2, 3, possibly 4, 5, 6, right? Just they're all sort of blinking like the lights on my house right now. These are all relatively equal as far as CPU usage is concerned. They're pretty close. I'm not gonna, I'm not comfortable really saying definitively that any of the next 4, 5, 6 synths is more or less CPU hungry than the rest. They are all very, very low CPU. And what are they? Well, this is the Modular V from the Arturia collection. And what else do we have? We also have Massive, the classic Massive, right? With inbuilt delay and reverb, although not the highest quality reverb on the planet. That's pretty old. But what else is in here? The SEM-V and the Prophet 5. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's lump those 4 together. We'll say they're all about equal. That Prophet 5 maybe even a little bit lower than the others, which is fine. It's further down the ranking. Let's put these to sleep. Massive, you go to sleep too. We'll put the SEM to sleep. And then, okay, now we definitely have the Prophet 5. And what is this next to it? This is Ableton's built-in analog device, right? So the analog synth and the Prophet 5 are chewing up about the same amount of CPU each. We'll put that to sleep. Good night, Prophet 5. Hello, analog. You take a little nap. And now, what's next? These two look like they're pretty close as well. So what are they? This is the Ableton Wavetable synth. You go to sleep, followed by Serum, right? Serum is extremely low CPU, as are the last few we've been talking about, but it's definitely on the low end as far as CPU usage. Very efficient synth, or old, right? It could be efficient or it could be old, but either way, let's put Serum to sleep. All right, now let's do the last batch. I'm going to slide on down to the remains of the day here. And what are we looking at? Okay, so we've got 5 synths still running here. What are they? These are the 5 lowest CPU usage synths on my M1 Mac. And I've got 64 gigabytes of RAM. So, and these are synths, not samplers. There's no disk streaming here or anything like that. And what are they? So, I'd say they're all pretty close. This one is Omnisphere. Right? We knew that. I've been using Omnisphere for years. It's always been a super low CPU synth. Love it. Highly recommend Omnisphere. Yeah, I know they don't have a demo and that pisses a bunch of people off, but damn it, it's Eric Persing, man. The guy's a frickin' sound design genius, or he was in the late 80s and all through the 90s. I mean, he was Roland for 10 years. And that library is just huge, and it's all good. I cannot recommend this. This is not a sponsored video, but I like Omnisphere. Anyway, let's turn it off. All right, when Omnisphere goes to sleep, what lights up next is, it's still pretty well spread across, but the next thing is the FM operator synth from Ableton, right? I miss FM8. I like Native Instruments FM8, but it will not run on my M1 Max, so I'm basically just using operator. So put operator to sleep, and what do we have next? Got the Arturia ARP 2600, which I turned the polyphony on, but it will only, I think it only goes to 4-note polyphony. I don't think it'll do more than that. So this may be on the low side simply because it's constrained by polyphony, but I only use it as a monosynth anyway, so it's extremely low CPU. Right? Have fun with that. As you do more routings, it does ramp up, so your mileage may vary. But for basic stuff, Berlin School, bleeps and bloops, really low CPU. What's next? We put that to sleep. We get all of my cohorts on the Discord really like UVI Falcon. Now, this is like super dumb mode UVI Falcon. I literally just dropped a sawtooth in there and a simple delay, and I think the spark verb is what's running in there, right? But it's still a very efficient system, right? I don't know how old Falcon is, but it's been around long enough that I'm not surprised that it's quite efficient. And then it is number 2. There's only one synth left that has a lower CPU usage. As you can see, that first LED sort of segment is lit on UVI and is unlit on the synth next to it. So UVI is using more CPU than this one technically. So what is this final synth when I turn off Falcon? The final synth is the Arturia V Collection Synclavier V, believe it or not. And it's not running a sawtooth, it's running its init patch, which is like this breathy, fluty thing, because it's sample-based. So it is like very, very low CPU. You should be able to do some interesting things with it if you like the sound of this synth. It is a throwback to an older day, right? But if you're doing synthwave, it's the place to be. And that's it, all right? So that is all the virtual synthesizers that I've plugged into Ableton here. Again, this is an M1 Mac with the max CPU option, 64 gigabytes of RAM. I have no problem running all of these all at once. I think was pegging the CPU. We can go back to the beginning of the video. I'll go grab that clip and look at it, but I think it's certainly less than 50% of my CPU. I think maybe even much less. So, hey, you can cram a lot of stuff onto these machines. So this is not a Mac PC video, but whatever. I used to be a PC guy. That was it. It is now late. My family's asleep. My house smells like cookies. I am about to go on vacation for Christmas. And I am going to use that time to prep for the January stuff. January is coming up. I did not partake in January really last year. I'm going to this year, and I'm going to try and do it entirely with hardware as a means to motivate me to get comfortable on the hardware and sort of get it orchestrated. I can go pick up any of the synths in the studio and play and have a great time, but getting them all sort of playing nice together from a timing clocking perspective, should be able to do it. I think I know how I'm going to do it, but I got to get that set up before January rolls around. And that's about it. So I hope this was entertaining for you. Again, entertaining porpoises. And if not, and you're mad now, sorry. Was not my intent. Feel free to vent in the comments. If you have any questions, if you have things you want me to try, you can ask, but I probably won't because I'm lazy and I really don't like the idea of like people being like, try this variant with this other thing and this, have you had this synth that you haven't installed yet to go get it, etc., etc. I'm not that concerned with it. All of these synths run fine for me. They all run fine in the productions that I've been doing them. I'm blessed in that I have a Mac that's powerful enough that I don't need to worry too much about the CPU. Anyway, that's about it. Have a great night. Hope the rest of your week's easy, and I'll talk to you later. This has been Synth Seeker. See you later.